All right. So, yes, you cannot get a narcissist to actually change their personality, but you can get them to change how they will deal and interact with you. And I'm going to give you 6 ways to get them to change in how they deal and interact with you in this video. So stay tuned and watch all the way to the end so that you can see what I mean. What I mean is they've been conditioning you from the beginning. You have been dealing with them. They've been love bombing you. Now, this is whether you're in a romantic relationship, a business relationship, even a family relationship. Even if you've known them forever, they condition you. They expect you to act in a certain way. So what you have to do is condition them back. You have to let them know, hey, this ain't how it's going to go anymore. There's a new game in town. Things are changing. Things are shifting. And the way that we've had a paradigm, the way things have gone before ain't the way it's going to be anymore. So you're going to have to change. And so you're basically reconditioning them back. And the way I explain it and the way I want you to understand this is that it's the same as if you are dealing with a toddler. The same as if you're dealing with a 2-year-old who's having a tantrum. When 2-year-olds have tantrums and they're conditioning their parents, basically, the parents see the 2-year-old having a tantrum on the floor, right? And so for those of you who've had 2-year-olds, you know what I mean. What happens is the 2-year-old wants something. Let's say it's a bottle. And the 2-year-old is saying, I want that bottle. And the parents are going, nope, you don't get the bottle anymore. You have to use the sippy cup or whatever it is. The 2-year-old's like, I want the bottle. And so what happens is if the parents give in to that tantrum, then the next time the 2-year-old just goes, you know what? It worked last time. So next time I'm just going to scream louder. I'm just going to scream longer. I'm going to kick my heels. I'm going to flail my arms. I'm going to throw things. I'm going to become even more horrible. I'm going to make their lives miserable. I'm going to embarrass them in stores, whatever it is I need to do so that they will have to give in to me because I want that bottle. I want what I want right now. And then the parents go, oh my God, I can't take this. There's the bottle. And that's what's going on with narcissists. So until like those parents just go, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. The kid goes, you know what, apparently they're not giving in. I'm going to have to just give up on this. I'll just have to behave. I'll just have to, deal with it, take the sippy cup, and they finally just give up. But guess what? They're the worst right before they decide to give up. And that's what it is with narcissists as well. So you're basically, doing the same thing. You're reconditioning them. Do they change inherently? No, because they're not actually 2-year-olds. They're actually adults. But you are conditioning them to let them know there's a new game in town. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you these tips to let you know how to recondition them. Are you going to change them into loving people who have empathy, who now know how to care for people and become amazing human beings who no, you're not actually changing the narcissist spots, but you're changing them into how they will, treat you, respect you, or they're going to just get out of your life. All right. So here's what you're going to do. I'm going to give you 6 tips. Got it? Number 1, you're going to understand narcissism. You are going to start really getting into, that's why you're watching this channel. That's why you're reading the books. That's why you are getting all the knowledge that you possibly can, because honestly, the more you understand, the more you dig in, the more you really start powerfully understanding everything you can about narcissism, the different types of narcissism, the traits of narcissism, the traits of people that they target, you start to realize, hey, this ain't me. This is them. I can't take this personally. This is something that's, happens to people when they were young. And you start to realize, wow, this is something that, took place. And by the way, as I say all the time, narcissists didn't attach themselves to you because you had so little value. They attached themselves to you because you had so much value. They like sources of supply that have a lot of value. That's why they liked you in the first place, even though they gaslit you into believing you had no value. Understand narcissism. That's number one. Number two, set those boundaries. I always say, step one, don't run. Set boundaries. Obviously get away from them, but you're not running away. You're setting boundaries. The more you have fear, the more they smell it in the water. They're like sharks looking for that blood. And once they see that blood, they go for that. They go for that jugular. They know how to instill that in you. Set boundaries and stick to those boundaries. And then number three is, don't be afraid of them. Don't be afraid to confront them. Don't be afraid of them. They respect people who aren't afraid of them. That's the only type of person that they actually respect. You can't have fear. I started to allude to that earlier, but as soon as you have fear, they read that, and then that gives them supply. Your fear actually feeds that. They get off on that. They get a high on that. That keeps them around. That keeps them coming back. They enjoy that. Most people don't want people to be afraid of them. That doesn't give them joy. It gives them joy. You don't want that. And the more you can say, I'm not afraid of this person. They're just a small little, they're actually more afraid of you than you are of them. And the more you can see that, the more you can uncover that, the more you peel back those onion layers and see that, the more you will understand that. So no fear. And I want you to put that in the comments right now. No fear. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of them. Don't be afraid to confront them. Don't be afraid to assert yourself. Assert what's fair. Assert what's best for you. Number four is related to that, and that is hold them accountable. Hold them accountable for their behavior. If you're in litigation and they don't do something that they're supposed to do, they don't provide discovery that they're supposed to provide, file a motion to compel, they violate a court order, file a motion, let the court know, make the court enforce that court order, ask for sanctions if you need to, if that's something that's available for that. Ask for attorney's fees if you can. Whatever you can do it. Don't sit by and go, well, I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want to, hurt them. The more you do that, the more they get away with things, and you're not holding them accountable. And then they think that they are, still have some kind of power over you, some kind of control over you. And that's not okay. That's number four. Number five is reward positive behavior. When they act the way you want them to, recognize that. Say, great job, or I'm glad you're using the parenting app like you're supposed to, or whatever it is that they're supposed to do. They do like their ego stroked, so if you fluff up their ego, it's a good thing. I know you don't want to do it, I know you don't enjoy those kinds of things, but, I always say fluff for favor, vomit later, because it helps you to ethically manipulate the manipulator, and it helps you to get some things that you want down the road. If, don't do it just to do it to get some things that you want, right? So reward positive behavior if it's going to help you. And then number 6 is the final thing, and that is to totally ignore when they are trying to bait you. This is so, so, so important. Probably the most important. The most important. This is something they totally get off on, is trying to bait you. And they will try to do this constantly in a myriad of different ways, probably infinite ways, thousands and thousands and thousands of ways. It will go on forever, as long as you allow it to. I can't even name the number of different ways that they will continue to try to bait you. But, and depending on the type of narcissist you're dealing with, the way they bait is also infinite as well. But, they will constantly try to bait you. The more you can find yourself ignoring it, rising above, smiling through it, the better it will be for you, because, that gives them narcissistic supply. It also gives them things that they can use against you as well. The more you react to it, remember, everything you put your hand to is a potential trial exhibit as well. So make sure that you don't give them any kind of things that they can use against you either, by the way. That doesn't help you at all. I know it's really hard. I know it's extremely difficult, especially, if you've been traumatized by them for years and years and years. Definitely get the help and support that you need. All right. Are there things that narcissists could do to change their behavior? Well, yeah. And it has happened. Actually, I've met them. There are actually wonderful people that I've met who say that they used to be horrible narcissists, like awful people who've had like the world cave in on them. And they really have had to take a look at themselves and change. And it does happen sometimes. People who have said that they were the worst people in the world and found themselves in situations where, they've said everything changed for them. I would say that it can happen. It doesn't happen that often. And for most of you who are out there, I would say don't sit around and go, yeah, maybe my narcissist, whoever it is that I'm dealing with, can change, and let me hold out hope. And the reason why I say that is because for most of you, you're in situations where it literally is sucking your soul to the point where it's probably affecting your health and affecting everything about you. And when you just really feel like you just no longer can function or breathe, and I always say, like, the soul knows, it is just not serving you anymore, whether it's a business relationship or a personal relationship or even a family member. You just have to create those boundaries and just cut it. And it's just not serving you anymore. So I'm just saying that sometimes you just have to make a decision that it's just not for you. But be that as it may, there are some things that narcissists could do to change their behavior. And I'm going to give you what the 10 things are. And number 1 is, obviously, just like anything, they're going to have to recognize that there's an issue. And I'm seeing this from the perspective of a person who helps people in negotiations and helps people communicate in these settings. And so in any situations when people have to communicate with each other, they're going to have to recognize that there's an issue. So number 1 is recognize there's an issue. I mean, if they don't think there's a problem, then there's a fundamental flaw in this whole thing. So number one is they're going to have to recognize there's a problem in the first place. And then number two, they're going to have to do something about it, right? This is something that they're going to have to do on a professional level, because there's a deep-seated something that's going on within them, deep-seated traumas, deep-seated issues internally, where, something had happened to them when they were children. And this is something that has been going on with them for a very, very long time. And so this is very, very ingrained. Deep grooves have been layered on for many, many years that will have to be handled and processed in a way that most of the time they don't think they can do on their own. So this is something that'll have to happen with professional help. So recognize there's an issue. Number two, seek professional help. So number three is, once they've done those number one and number two, they're going to have to then start taking responsibility for their actions. I mean, sure, they can sit around and say, hey, I had horrible parents or whatever it is that happened to them in their childhood. But then, hey, I'm an adult now, so now I'm going to have to take responsibility for my actions. So one is recognize there's an issue. Two, seek professional help. Number three is, now I got to start taking responsibility for my actions. So number three is they will have to start taking responsibility. Number four is they're going to have to now start learning, what does it look like to be a person who has compassion, a person who has empathy. So number four is learn key phrases. Learn key phrases. How do I start to speak? What does it look like to have the words coming out of their mouths? What do they start to say? And number five is something similar. Certain behaviors. I think that they need to start saying the phrases. And what does a person look like that is a person of compassion, a person of empathy? They're retraining themselves to be the type of person that you wanted them to be in the first place. It takes a lot. It takes a lot. And while they're undoing themselves and being this person, if you are staying with them, there's going to be some need for you to practice a lot of self-care while you're dealing with this narcissist. And I do have a video on self-care to deal with narcissists. And while you're with this person, I would definitely recommend that you check out that video. And if you're dealing with a narcissist right now, you should check out that video anyway. And it's hard. It's very hard. So I want you to put in the comments right now, I can do this, because you can do this. You absolutely can do this. If you are with a narcissist right now, I would just definitely say, as I said in the beginning, probably not the best thing for you to stay at this point. Maybe create an exit plan and not sit around and go, I think this person might change. Okay, so we've done numbers 1 through 5. Let's go to number 6. The next thing that they're going to have to do is learn to recognize when they are falling back into their old patterns. Learn to recognize when they're using their dominant behaviors, their manipulative behaviors, going back into those old patterns of whatever it was that they were doing in the first place, being passive aggressive, lying, whatever their narcissistic behaviors were in the past. They're going to have to recognize, I'm going back into that. And then stop themselves. And what can they do to substitute their new behaviors, their healthy behaviors? What does it look like? Remember, go back to the new behaviors of a person who is healthy and all of that, the new things that they're learning. Back to numbers 4 and 5. And so number 7 is learn how to be mindful. Learn how to be mindful of their words and their behaviors and their actions. So that's number 7. Number 8 is learn how to love themselves. These are people who've been living double lives, feeling very small inside, a lot of self-hatred. Narcissists don't have any feeling of inner value, a lot of inner hatred. That's why they try to layer on all that external value through that outer prestige and adulation and control and all, because they don't have any sense of inner value. So learning how to love themselves, learning how to feel whole and complete, learning how to harmonize that feeling of feeling whole and complete inside, so that outside they don't feel like they have to do those things. That inner sense of peace, that inner sense of wholeness. That's what they really need to strive for. That whole world calms down for them, learning that. Number 9 is learning how to heal that inner trauma, doing the therapy, doing the work, learning how to having that compassion for themselves. That's a lot of work. It's going to take a ton of work on their part. And so number 10 is really committing to doing the work, committing to being the better person and following through and sticking to it. It's a lot of work for them. Have you ever met somebody, they started off to be the most charming, charismatic person you've ever met in your life, then they turned out to be your worst nightmare, and then when you go to negotiate with them, they're a living hell? Well, I developed something called the SLAY method of negotiating with narcissists, and it has helped tens of thousands of people in more than 150 countries win, go from feeling drained and defeated to getting the outcomes they want. And the reason why it works is because I spent more than 20 years studying narcissism as a trial attorney, and now I'm here to help you win too, and also take your suffering and turn it into your superpower. Take your pain and turn it into profit, peace, and purpose as a highly specialized, high conflict negotiation coach. If you want to learn how to do it, then just go to RebeccaZung.com/apply, and I will show you how. 8 ways to outsmart that controlling narcissist. By the way, I have a brand new book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with Narcissists and Win. It is literally in pre-order right now. I have tons of free bonuses for you. Go to slaythebully.com, grab it. All right, number 1, what's the one thing they want you to do? What's the one thing they want you to do? They want you to take their bait. Why do they want you to do that? Well, because they go fishing. Boom. Reel you in. So don't take their bait, okay? Do not take their bait. Why do they want you to take their bait? Because then they feed their ego. They feed that need inside of them for supply. So remember, they don't feel inside like they have any value. They literally have to get all of their value from external sources. So yes, it's how they look to the world. Yes, it's ego. Yes, it's winning. Yes, it's adulation. Yes, it's all of those things. But it's also by controlling people, debasing people, degrading people, manipulating people. That's also a form of supply for them. So when you take their bait, when they throw things out there to try to trigger you, that gives them a high. It literally, they get off on that. So when they send you these long emails, these long texts, these long things, or something through their attorney, or something that they know that is going to trigger you, and you go right in with them, they've really got exactly what they want. And then now you're sucked into the mud, you're sucked into the quicksand with them. But it's even worse than that, because not only are you giving them narcissistic supply, number 1, you're giving them what they want, but number 2, they use your emotional reaction against you. So if you are in any kind of a situation where either you are in a potential court case or negotiations of any sort, or you could be down the road, ever. They will use it against you, okay? They will say, look, there's the crazy one. They sit over there, calm, cool, collected. Not one bead of sweat has ever touched their brow. And you look like the crazy person. And they use your reactions against you. One of the greatest examples of this is in the mini series, I Care a Lot. I did a whole video on this, where the woman who was the caregiver of these elderly people went up to the other woman, the elderly woman, and whispered in her ear while the camera was playing. She would get these elderly people to become like her wards, right? So if she was their guardian, then she would get control of their money, and she would basically take their money, right? And so she would get them in front of the judge and have them declared incompetent. She would put them into these nursing home facilities, and she would get control of their money. So when there was a hearing coming up for this woman's capacity in front of this camera, she whispered in front of the camera all sorts of things to get her upset. I'm going to do this, you're this, all sorts of things, whispering quietly. And the woman went nuts in front of the camera and looked like crazy person, insane person who basically needed a straitjacket, needed to be restrained. The other woman, the caregiver person, was like, oh my gosh, look at that. Wow. Ugh, it's terrible. This crazy old elderly person who is obviously doesn't have her capacity. So she literally took her bait, hook, line, and sinker. And that's what happens with narcissists. So, and I did a video on that, which you can check out if you'd like, but that's what they do. And it doesn't have to be in that kind of situation. They can say, you're a deadbeat dad or a horrible mother, and you can sit there and say, what are you talking about? I just picked them up from school, I just fed them their snacks, I just took them to baseball, or whatever. Are you kidding me? I just paid child support, whatever it is. And then you're down into it and you're in the thick of it and you're in it. Don't take that bait, because you don't need to prove anything to them. They are not the judge. They are not the jury. Okay. They are not the person you need to prove anything to. So who cares what they say? Don't take their bait. That's number one. Number two, don't engage in conversation with them or in any conversations that are emotional or argumentative, or in any conversations about the past. This is another way to not take the bait, but really to outsmart that controlling narcissist. Because again, they're going to try to drag you into these things, but don't talk about the past, because that's something else that they're going to do. They're going to get you to talk about something that happened 20 years ago, if they can, especially if you're trying to call them onto the carpet about something that happened now. If you are going to get them to be held responsible for something today, they will definitely try to project and deflect about anything else, because they don't want to be held responsible for something that's going on now. So they're going to try to do anything they can to get that conversation off of that. So don't engage in that. Don't start getting argumentative. Don't get emotional. By the way, I have phrases for disarming narcissists, which you can download. It's totally free. Go to disarmthenarc.com. Highly recommend that you grab that. Disarmthenarc.com. Don't engage, don't get emotional, don't get argumentative with them. Total waste of time. You're not going to convince them of anything. They're not going to go, oh, you know what? I get it now. I see what you're saying. Oh, yes. Now, you know what? I was wrong. They're not doing that. So what are you doing? Just stop yourself. All right. Set boundaries, stick to them. That's the next one. Set boundaries, stick to them. You know what I say? Step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. Remember what's negotiable: contracts, issues, terms. You know what's not negotiable? Your self-worth, your self-esteem. All right. So step 1, don't run. That's where you're putting your boundaries into place. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. Okay? Avoid confrontation as much as possible. All right. Next one. Don't try to change them. Don't try to fix them. Don't try to change what their beliefs are. Don't try to get them to acknowledge anything you did or anything that, your accomplishments. Any kind of conversation like that is a waste of your time, your energy, your good life on this earth, your breath. All of that creative, wonderful energy that you have is just better spent doing other things on this planet. You can say things to them like, I agree, that's what you think. Or you can say things to them like, that's an interesting perspective. Just say things like that just to keep things flowing. The next one is, remember that your self-worth, who you are, has absolutely nothing to do with them. You are whole and complete, and it has absolutely a separate value from who they are. Your self-worth does not depend on what they say, what they do. And the more time that you spend giving them and thinking about what they're doing is less time that you have to create and be the highest version of yourself. So, that was one of the massive, huge aha moments that I had when I was extricating myself from a narcissistic relationship. I realized that every moment that I was giving to this person, I was in victim mode. And so I needed to stop. So, do what you need to do to get out of that relationship, and think about it when you have to, when you're strategizing or creating your leverage or whatever. Remember my SLAY methodology: strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you. So when you're thinking about it, think about it. But any other time, you got to be in create mode. Give yourself the gift of being the highest, best version of yourself. Think about something else that you can pivot to that is going to keep you in creation mode. Is it going to be writing that book that you've always wanted to write? Is it going to be helping people? Is it going to be coaching people? Is it going to be devoting your life to something that you've always wanted to devote your life to? Your children, is whatever it is, you got to pivot into something else, because your self-worth, all of that has nothing to do with them. They are broken people. And so however they've been toward you in the past has nothing to do with you. Okay. The way people treat other people is a direct reflection of the way they feel about themselves, good or bad. They've treated you poorly because they don't feel good about the way they feel about themselves inside. So you can't take it personally. The next one is stay positive, stay upbeat around them. Let them know that you're like Teflon, just let it fly off. Or like a duck's back. It just, rolls off of you. Because as long as they think that that's what's happening, then they'll start to be disinterested, because you're not taking the bait anymore. You are calm, you're not emotional, you're happy, you're not interested in giving them supply anymore. And the less and less all of that is interacting, then they're going to be very much surprised. So step 1, don't run. Step 2, make that U-turn. Step 3, break free. So you're literally turning this around so that you're no longer backing away. You're no longer on the defensive. You're turning around, you're walking forward. You're now on the offensive. And that's how you start to stand in your power. And that's how you start to break free. So I want you to put in the comments right now, I can do this, because you can do this. You absolutely can. All right. The next one is you maintain your individuality, you maintain your independence. As you start to break free, as you start to become powerful, as you start to become confident, you will start to see yourself as separate. You will start to see yourself as something different, and you will start to see that power coming underneath you. That's when you start to see that wind coming underneath your wings. Be prepared for drama. Be prepared for manipulation, because they won't want to see that supply source coming away from them. You know, narcissists are always the worst right before they're ready to give up. It's like a toddler having a tantrum, you know? I mean, it's as that baby is being kind of conditioned, they get worse and worse and worse. So be prepared for that drama, trauma, and chaos. But you can do this, right? You put that in the comments already, right? I can do this, because you can. All right. And lastly, get that professional help that you need, right? So you will need help. You will need support. You will need a support system. Make sure you join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. Join that. You will need help. You will need support. You will need a support system. You get professional therapy. If you don't have access to it, we do have a partnership with BetterHelp. You can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung and get that online support therapy if you need access to that. We receive commissions. It doesn't cost you any extra. We just want you to have the help and support that you need. Make sure you subscribe to this channel as well. We want you to make sure that you have everything that you need. I'm here providing free resources for you every day as an attorney, helping you negotiate with narcissists, helping you communicate with narcissists every single day. Remember that you have a voice. You have a voice. You have a right to have a voice. You have a right to speak your truth. Well, there's a couple things I want to talk to you about. So you start off with your story of how you felt when you were 13 years old.
Yeah.
And that you told your mom that you didn't even want to live anymore, and that scared your mom to death. So I want you, yeah. And so I want you to tell that story. And then you also talk about narcissists in the book a little bit.
I
So
do.
I want you to talk about that a little bit too.
I was treading in the ultimate experts territory here. I'm like, you're the ultimate expert. So
Yeah.
moving in
So
that
I want you to
direction.
talk about that. And then I want to get to tune, because I love that acronym as well.
Okay.
So that, because I'd love to get to that. And I also love the where you talk about, Gandhi, don't let anyone, walk through your mind, so I want to get to that. So talk about how you struggled with depression, and you talked, I love the story that you open with at the beginning of the book. Talk about that.
Yeah, I'm in 8th grade and I tell my mom that I'm depressed and I want to kill myself. And she just starts screaming, going crazy. What? You want to kill yourself? What are you talking about? Why are you saying that? I just starts freaking out. And she was freaking out so much. My mom passed away at the age of 59. So I can imagine her and visualize her right now being a kid and what she was like saying that. And I was so concerned about my mom freaking out. I was like, mom, it's okay. It's okay. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. And so I was there spending my time making my mom feel better instead of dealing with what I was going through. And I even said, maybe that's why all these years later, my brother says he eats his feelings. And so, I think I've worked through a lot of that in my life. And again, my mom was a very loving mom. My dad was a very loving dad. My biological father left when I was a year old. He was a psychotherapist, actually, a social worker, and I believe still is. We don't have a relationship, but it's interesting how you go through your life, and like I'm really good at analyzing and psychology and all of that. So I must have that from a genetic standpoint. But yeah, I struggled as a kid like that. And I struggled in my 20s, and I struggled at 31 years old with depression, anxiety, and so much fear and angst in my stomach that I felt like I was just going to die every single day. Every day, I felt like I was just dying a slow death. And
Mm.
I was miserable. And Catherine, my wife, she had enough of my negativity. And she said, I love you, but I'm not gonna spend my life with someone who is so negative and miserable all the time. And I think if I was just depressed, that would have been fine. She would have supported me. But I think the fact that I was blaming her for why my life was so bad, and I was blaming her for not living up to my dreams, I think that was the big challenge. And so I had to change. And that began this journey of working to become a more positive person. And I've done everything in this book. And that's how I know it works. Like I really have done a lot of this. And I've been teaching
Yeah.
this. I've been teaching this since 2007. A lot of the things that I wrote about in the book. Now, I didn't know why it worked back then. The One Truth is all about how to do it, why to do it, and why it works and how it works. It's like the how to, which helps it all make sense, which is more powerful when you understand it. So I wish I knew then, but I knew I was doing it. And as I was doing it, I realized my whole life has been a quest to get better myself and then help other people get better on their journey.
Hmm. Yeah. And, you talk about this oneness and separateness, and you talk about the narcissist, which is a person who is completely separate.
Yes. So everything comes down to oneness and separateness. For instance, the word integrity comes from the word integer, which means whole and complete. So a leader with integrity has wholeness, completeness. They have oneness. They are aligned. There's no gap in their character. There's no gap in who they are and what they say. Now we move to a narcissist. A narcissist actually feels separate. And because they feel separate, they focus on self and themselves and protecting themselves instead of others. Now, we know that most narcissists are the way they are because they've dealt with some trauma, some
Hmm.
painful experience in their past that have caused a separation, a wound, a hole in their soul. Now, this wound manifests itself actually neurologically because a narcissist's brain, they will actually cut off other parts of their brain if you study them neurologically. And so there's actually a protective mechanism where they cut off other parts and they separate themselves even neurologically.
Yeah.
And so they don't feel whole. They don't feel like they're part of a connected
Correct.
team. They don't feel like they're part of others or care about others. And because you don't care about others, right, you then are more often mean to others, or you see others as an object, not as someone who is like you. You don't see them as one with you. So you don't
Hmm.
care about them. That's why
Hmm.
narcissists don't care about anyone else, because they don't even see someone else as mattering. They matter, and that's all that matters. And
Right.
so that's really big. As you know, you've studied narcissists, you're the expert on narcissists. And
Right.
so this really makes me understand narcissists in a new way. And I think will help other people understand them, that they feel separate. And that's why they are. Now, also, this narcissists also suffer, majority of them, from other mental health disorders, isolation, feelings of disconnection,
Right.
bipolar, right? A lot of sadness, melancholy. Why is that? Because people with mental health disorders, when you move from oneness to separateness, you move from positive to negative. This is huge. It sounds simple, but it's profound. You move from oneness to separateness, you move from positive to negative. The more you move towards separateness, the more negative thoughts you have, the
Sure.
more depression you have. And why is that? We can't go into this now, but that's the whole idea of the book. Is the brain is an antenna. Read the book, you'll understand. You're either tuning into the positive or negative.
Yeah.
Rebecca, do you think, and you're the expert on this, do you think, because I've been thinking a lot about this, can we move the narcissist from separateness to oneness? Can we help them become more whole? Have you seen a narcissist heal like anybody who's suffered a mental health disorder? Can they heal and find more wholeness in life, in their life, and better relationships?
Well, see, this is the thing. I just did all the research on this in my book, and the
Yeah.
problem is that when their brains were bathed in all these chemicals
Yes.
as a child, and I told you about this, that I had done this research,
Yep.
so the fight or flight was continuous during their childhood,
Yep.
right? And so the limbic system part of their brain sustained emotional damage
Yep.
during childhood, and so there was arrested development during childhood. And
Right.
so they're in this constant um kind of starvation mode,
Yeah.
basically.
Yep.
And so the problem is that when they are presented with stimuli in adulthood that cause them to feel like they need to go back into that fight or flight mode, then they're basically in where they feel like they need to be um you know basically they back into that mode again, where
Right.
so I don't know that they can ever be healed. I just don't know,
Right.
because the problem is they would have to be self-aware. They would have to go, I need to be healed. I need to be healed. And I don't know that they're ever going um to do that. And most of the mental health professionals that I have ever interviewed have said they're not willing to take that step. They're not willing to take that leap.
It
So
goes
I
to the
don't know.
yeah, it goes to the fact that if the brain is an antenna and the brain antenna is damaged in some capacity and
Yeah.
not working the way it's supposed to work from our brain standpoint, if it's not working, then it's going to be hard for them to tune into any emotional feelings of love or empathy or support, because they are in such a protective mode and a flight, fight, response mode. But I do believe this. I do believe this. I know healing can take place at all levels. We know the body can heal. We know broken bones can heal. We actually know the brain could actually heal from traumatic brain injuries, right? It can heal. So I do believe maybe the future is going to be, can we figure out a way, again, just like, again, I'm not advocating for them, but I've been doing research on psychedelics, and what they've found with some psychedelics is
I'd like to think of
yeah,
psychedelics, maybe. Yeah. I,
yeah,
I,
people with
yes,
severe
maybe with psychedelics. Yes.
PTSD, trauma, people with severe, they've had some success where it lights up a lot of different parts of the brain
Yes.
when you're doing that, which actually causes the antenna to then connect to a different level of
Yes.
consciousness. And then what's happening is I'm pretty sure they're finding some sense of oneness in that experience. And that's why they feel feelings of love that they never felt before.
Yes,
And from
maybe
that
with
age,
psychedelics, yes,
right, a
but they
healing
would
could,
have to go to take the psychedelics. They'd
right.
have to want to do that. They'd have to
Yeah.
want to take that healing, because otherwise they're in such survival mode
Right. That
all the
they don't
time.
even think, yeah, they don't even think someone needs help. It's almost like when I think of someone with schizophrenia, there have been some healing cases of that. I talked to Chris Palmer. He's the author of Brain Energy. We had some great conversations on that. And they have healed some schizophrenics with a ketogenic diet, even. Again, getting the brain antenna working more correctly. I do believe that even with schizophrenics, like a lot of times their brains are so damaged and so tuned into these different frequencies. They're hearing multiple voices and so forth from the consciousness, which I talk about, in the book a little bit. As they're doing that, that's why it's hard, because they don't even realize they need help. They don't even
Exactly.
realize they need to
That's
change,
it.
because they're not even aware of the ability to change, because they're so far, gone in some ways. Their brain is.
It's almost like autism or something in a
I
way.
thought like, I know, because yeah, can know autistic, but again, autism, I'm even hearing more and more modalities will be able to at some point find healing, because what autism is caused initially by a brain injury. There's some kind of brain injury that happens
Correct.
at that level. So I do believe, again, I'm a spiritual person. I believe healing can take place in a moment. I believe somehow, some way there's a spiritual healing that could take place. And if we could get them to actually pray, if we can get them to pray every day, I talked to Professor Newberg. He is the top uh, researcher in neurotheology, how meditation affects the brain, how prayer affects the brain of different religions, not just Christianity, but all different religions. And he's studying this. What you find is that actually there's a, again, a psychedelic kind of impact. I'm not necessarily thinking we need psychedelics if we can actually tune into prayer and meditation and the things I talk about in the book. I do believe over time it could renew the mind, create more neurosynapses connections, and start to create healing in the brain. So that's my hope and my belief. Do I know that for sure? No. Is it a theory? Yes. But guess what? Hey, science, go test the theory. Start looking in this direction for healing to take place. And I think they should.
Hmm. I mean, I would love to think so. I would love to think so. And I think that sometimes when there are certain things that happen in their lives, like, that cause them cause a collapse, because that so many things happen, maybe maybe. I've talked to people that have said to me, I used to be a narcissist, but then everything happened to me. My wife left me, my business collapsed, all of that caused me to have to look at everything in my life. And then, now I'm no longer a narcissist because I had to become self-aware.
It's like the degree. Like it really depends on the degree. Like how bad is the narcissism? Is it real? Are you so far gone? There's no way. But are you at a certain level? You can come back, just like certain levels of schizophrenia and so forth, and brain injury. I do believe there's, again, a certain degree of what you can come back from, and I believe that this is hope. Like I hope people read the book at any level of their wound, of any level of their trauma, wherever you are on the journey. Reading this book will help you heal on the journey, and tuning into, as you said you wanted to talk about, is part of the healing process.
Losing weight can be tough, and I know how frustrating it can be to feel like nothing is working. And that's why I'm so excited to offer something really special for you that's truly helping people. Hers. Right now, everyone's talking about weight loss medications like GLP-1s, but you don't need to be a celebrity to access them. Through Hers, you can get affordable, doctor-developed weight loss programs designed just for you, whether it's GLP-1 injections like the ones in Ozempic or Wegovy, or oral medication kits. Hers gives you the options to tailor everything right to your needs. What I love about Hers is that they make loss realistic and affordable, starting at just $199 a month with no hidden fees. Plus, you get the support of a medical provider to adjust your plan, answer questions along the way, all online and delivered right to your door. If you're ready for a weight loss solution that actually works, start your free online visit today at forhers.com/negotiate. That's FORHERS.com/negotiate for your personalized weight loss treatment options. Hers weight loss is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions apply.
And so I'm very grateful for all the info today. I might have a couple questions about how you've made your life magnificent, because although I think there's two types of people. I think there's people who say inspiring things, and then there's inspiring people. Very rarely is somebody both. And in my mind, you're both. In my mind, you say very inspiring, very valuable things that no one else is saying. Like, people have listened to the show today. This is not a normal show you've listened to. You've not heard this type of content anywhere else. So she's that, but then she is also inspiring. Her life is inspiring. And so I want to ask you, if someone was listening to this, Rebecca, and they said, I'm not in the exact same situation you were when you were 19 or 22 years old, but I am not where I want to be. I am not living the life that I deserve right now. And I want out of it. I want to change it. I'd like to someday be on a show like you're doing right now, saying that's my old story and this was the new one that I built. How do I get from this story I'm in that I'm not happy in to the story that I want to be in, like you did? What would be just a few of the pieces of advice you would give to that person just to start to change that story and change their life?
I always say that the only difference between people who are successful and the people who are not is really just one word, and that is execution. And I know that it may sound harsh to some people, but it's I don't mean it to sound harsh, but the difference between the Ed Milettes and anybody else in the world is just that you do what you say you're going to do, and just pick something small. It doesn't even have to be anything big, but I would just start with small things. Do small, just little lists, just a tiny thing that you're going to accomplish today. Whether it's drinking 4 glasses of water today, whatever it is, and actually do it. And, pick whatever it is that you're going to do and actually do it. And then when you find yourself that, you know, you're actually executing on the things that you're saying you're going to do, you will find that you will actually start covering ground in your life. And if there's something that you really want to do in your life, you know, when I decided that I was going to go back to law school, I had no money. I was making $26,000 a year teaching inner city school in Fort Lauderdale. I had $0 and I had 3 kids, and I went 100% on student loans to school. Um, and that's what I did. And, you know, I figured it out. And so, you know, you can do it. You just figure it out.
I'm picturing this woman back then, and then I'm looking literally at you. It's incredibly inspiring for me. Just even that decision. There had to be a day where the kids are there. There's 3 kids. Everyone thinks you're out of your damn mind, right? And you go, I'm gonna go back to law school. I mean, and then you
Well,
win.
and I love the word decide. Like I always think I'm gonna write a book about, you know, the power of a decision, like the deciding factor, because, you know, the word side actually means, you know, to cut off or to kill. Like side is, you know, like there can't be another option. Like you have to just decide in your mind, like this is it. This is where you're going. This is the plan. This is it, you
The
know.
I want to unpack a couple things that she said. Number one, about decisions. I love truth. I love when someone says something on my show that matches up with my own personal experience, and I just want to always like double stamp and validate it when it's just true. You're one decision away from changing your life. You're one new relationship, one decision, one person, one shift away. That's just a fact. You know what her and I have that maybe you don't quite yet? Just made that decision. It was one decision at one point. And this notion that she said a few minutes ago about just start small and keep this promise you make to yourself is huge, because if you're not living the life you want right now, you're not feeling the emotions you want, is what you're really saying. You're feeling scared, you're feeling fearful, you're feeling depressed, you're feeling out of control. That's because you have not built that self-confidence. Self-confidence is the process of keeping the promises you make to yourself and getting control over things you can control, whether it's making your bed, drinking that water, making a certain amount of contacts, getting up and working out, you know, a certain anything you do. Why pick something small? Why should you recommend that? Because you can control that. Pick the smallest possible things and do them, and you begin to stack this self-confidence so you can do the bigger things. You don't start out by going, I'm gonna make $1 million. You start out by going, I'm gonna make my bed by 6 o'clock today. And when you begin to do that, you go, I can trust me. I do the things I say I'm going to do. And then you point your will and your spirit at that next thing like a weapon, and you begin to magnetize it because you have a habit of doing the things you say you're going to do. So it's incumbent upon you to pick easy, small things first. But you got to do one other thing, everybody. And then she's going to give you a gift that's going to attach to this. You have to, when you're doing it, be intentional about it, and then give yourself emotional credit. Wow, I did what I said I was going to do. Put it in the bank. You can't just do it and be oblivious to it. I made the phone calls I said I was going to say. Put it in the bank. I drank the water I said I was going to drink. I did it. Put it in the bank. And you start stacking paper in the bank account of your self-confidence. And pretty soon you're rich. And then you can spend that capital on bigger things. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's brilliance, what she's told you.
Hey there, I'm Rebecca Zung, and I'm an attorney, and I help people negotiate with narcissists. And if you want a narcissist respect, I'm going to give you 8 ways to get it. But there are things that you've got to stop doing if you want a narcissist respect. Number 1, you've got to stop doing things for them that they can easily do for themselves. You've got to stop enabling them. I know that it's hard because, especially with the fear factor, if you're dealing with a narcissist, they expect things. You've been conditioned by them. You know, if you've been in a longer term relationship with them, they have been getting a certain amount of what we call narcissistic supply from you, and they expect you to do things for them. I mean, you're kind of like sometimes like their janitor in a lot of ways. They expect you to be a certain person for them in this relationship. And even if you resent it, even if you don't want to do certain things for them, they kind of have set things up in a certain way. You kind of have to do certain things for them as you think. But if you enable that behavior, then they no longer respect you. You've got to stop doing things for them that they can easily do for themselves. What happens with narcissists a lot of times is that everything is kind of optional for them, and you don't get that. You don't get everything is optional for you, but everything is kind of optional for them. You've got to stop that if you want them to respect you. And they respect people that they have to, kind of work for. You've got to stop doing things for them that they can easily do for themselves. Let them know, no, I'm not doing that anymore. You have to do that. You have the ability. So stop enabling them. So that's number one. And I'm going to give you 7 more. And as we work up, it's going to get even harder and harder. You're kind of like dealing with a toddler. You know how with toddlers, they have tantrums, and with toddlers, they have to feel like they have to scream louder, scream longer, and feel they're kind of like giving the parents sort of the side eye as they're screaming, going, are they watching? Are they watching? Because if they're watching, they're seeing if they're going to get that thing that they want as they have the tantrum. Maybe I just need to kick my legs this time. Maybe I just need to throw things this time, a little bit more of a tantrum. That's what's happening. But if they don't get what they want, then they actually start to respect the parents. That's what you're doing. Okay. Stop doing things for them that they can easily do for themselves. That's number 1. Number 2 is you've got to stop seeking validation from them. Stop putting yourself down. Stop going, oh yeah, I'm not very good at that. I know I'm not really all that smart, or stop caring what they think of you. Stop looking for their opinion on things. Just go, you know what? I can do things on my own. I don't need your validation. I don't need you to believe in me. I don't need you to think that what I'm doing is a good idea. I don't need you to think that I'm smart or I'm attractive or that I am good at what I do. A lot of times I've seen women especially want to start a business or start something new or, whatever it is. And, whoever it is that's their significant other will say, oh, that's a stupid idea, or you're not very good at that. And, in fact, I actually was just having a conversation with somebody recently who just said to me that, she had been an actress or something like that. And her significant other said, you're not a very good actress. But, here's something that's interesting. She ended up becoming a writer instead because this person said to her, you're not a very good actress. So she ended up doing writing, and she ended up winning all sorts of awards because this person said that she wasn't a good actress, and she ended up becoming an amazing writer and winning all these awards. But you know what? She kind of got the better of him. But she really needed to just not listen to the guy anyway, because here's the thing. People only treat people the way they feel about themselves, and narcissists don't like themselves, and that's why they treat people poorly. If somebody feels good about themselves, then they treat people well. If somebody feels poorly about themselves, then they treat people poorly, so you can't take it personally. So stop seeking validation from them. Stop putting yourself down. Stop caring what narcissists think about you. They actually respect people who don't care what they think about them. Okay. So if you want the narcissist respect, stop thinking what they care about you. By the way, if you're trying to negotiate with a narcissist, they're not going to want to negotiate or communicate or whatever with somebody who's like constantly putting themselves down. They're going to want to try to negotiate with somebody that they respect. So the more you start laying this foundation now, better it's going to be for you as you go through this process. And by the way, I do have a free negotiation worksheet for you at crushmydeal.com, which you should definitely get. So it's a free 15-page ebook, and it will definitely help you. And I upload brand new videos here on this channel every single day. And you should definitely subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell if you haven't done that already too. All right. So the other thing that you should do, the next thing, the third thing, and we've got 8 things here for you, is stop trying to be someone that you're not. One of the things that scares a narcissist more than anything is authenticity, because they are so fake all the time that you being an authentic person is, something that really throws them off. They don't know how to deal with that. They don't know how to deal with authenticity, genuineness, you being who you are, you standing up for yourself, you respecting yourself, you loving yourself. Those are all qualities that they don't have. And, they feel empty inside. So you being who you are, standing in your power, is something that they will totally respect. So stop trying to be someone that you're not. Number 4, stop making excuses for their bad behavior. Just stop doing that, because you are actually ignoring their red flags. Then you're actually defending their red flags when you do that. So stop making excuses for their bad behavior. Stop defending them to others. When you say things to other people like they had a bad childhood, they had a stressful week, they've had a stressful year, they are just making fun of me because that's, a joke that we have between each other. It's okay if they put me down, because that's our joke. That's not okay. Stop making excuses for their bad behavior, because that doesn't make them respect you. That allows them a pass for their disrespectful behavior. Number 5, stop trying to control them. Leave them be. They're never going to be controlled. So you need to stop trying to control them. You need to control yourself. You need to leave them on their path. Don't allow them to control you, but you also need to stop trying to control them. You need to be in your path, in your world, and be independent, because that will allow you the freedom to start shifting that dynamic, right? Step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. That's what I say all the time, right? If you're going to start pivoting, you're going to start shifting that dynamic. You want to start being on the offensive. You want to start to slay, which is my slay methodology: strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you. Then that's what you have to do. All right. All right. Number 6, stop letting them manipulate you emotionally, which is stop taking that bait. Stop taking everything they say or do personally. As I said, people who hurt people, who are hurt people. So when you say things like, they make me feel bad, you are making yourself out to be a victim, because you are in that space of allowing them that power to say they get to dictate how I feel, and don't give them that power. Okay. Number 7, stop giving them your time and your energy if they're not worth it, because they're not. Don't try to change them. Don't Don't say that, you can love them back to health, or you can, you don't need so much love. I've actually heard people say that, I didn't get that much love as a child, so I don't need that much anyway. And I have all the love to give, and I will be able to give them everything. You are going to just end up depleted. What happens with narcissists is they have this black hole inside of them. It can never be filled. They're like starving, gasping for breath, desperate for air. It's scarcity mentality to the extreme. And they're in survival mode all the time. And they have this black hole that can never be filled, and they want you to fill it. And while you might want to fill it too, it can never be filled. And so you're left feeling totally and utterly depleted, yet they're still starving. And so you're just exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And they're just like energy vampires, soul vampires, and it's not worth it. You'll never, ever, ever be able to satisfy that, and you'll never, ever, ever have your needs met. Ever. And you're so much worth so much more than that. And your soul knows it too. And it's in there screaming to get out. So number 8 is, if you really want a narcissist respect, this is going to be the hardest thing to do, but it's the most important. This is the most important step. You've got to walk away and never look back. So I want you to put in the comments right now, just walk away. Just walk away. Making that transition between summer and fall is always a crazy thing. And that's why I love having a leather jacket, like my gorgeous one from Quince. And they have timeless and high quality items, which I love. And they don't blow my budget, which I also love. They have cashmere sweaters and washable silk tops. And everything is like 50 to 80% less than other brands, which I also love. They cut out the middleman. They pass the savings on to us, which is also amazing. It's safe and ethical, which I also love. I really love my brown leather jacket from them. It's super stylish and it's high quality. Just love that. So make switching seasons a breeze with Quince's high quality closet essentials. Go to quince.com/negotiate for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/negotiate to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/negotiate. So I'm going to give you 6 things to avoid here. And then at the end, I'm going to give you the number 1 thing to avoid. Okay. So 6 things to avoid. And then I'm going to give you the number 1 thing to absolutely avoid, the mother load of things to avoid, the hairiest thing to avoid of all. All right. Because let me tell you, when you are dealing with narcissists, toxic people, there actually are a number of things to avoid. All right. So I'm going to help you out here for sure. There's just so many times that it's like you're dealing with a landmine when it comes to narcissists. All right. And I know because I've dealt with them in my personal life as well. And that's why I'm on this mission. I'm on this crusade. I've been recognized as one of the top attorneys in the United States. I've written a couple of best-selling books, but I'm here giving you free advice every single day because I want you to have the information in your hands. So if you want that too, go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. And by the way, if you're looking for ways to disarm that narcissist, free phrases, free responses, how to respond, you don't know how to put it into emails, you don't know how to put it into text messages, you don't know what to say, I've got those responses for you. Just go to disarmthenarc.com. I've got those free phrases for you. Disarmthenarc.com. All right. So number 1, don't try to change their mind. Don't try to change their mind. All right. Because you're never going to do that. Once they get it in their mind that they are going to do something, then that's it. You might be able to change their mind in other ways, but if you head on try to change it, they're going to dig their heels in and be super, super stubborn. To change a narcissist's mind, you've got to kind of plant seeds and sort of let them kind of come to their own conclusions and let them sort of think that it was their idea. You can't head on let them think that you're changing their mind, because if you do, they'll never ever change it. So number one, that's one thing. And I'm working my way up to the mother load thing to avoid when talking to a narcissist or a negative person. All right. The second thing to avoid is don't ever try to get them to acknowledge anything you ever did for them, or your accomplishments or anything like that, because they're never going to do that. They will never acknowledge that. And by the way, if you are negotiating with a narcissist, don't think that early on you are generous and say, you know what? I'm going to give them this thing. I'm going to throw in this thing that I know that they want, or I know is something that I'm entitled to, but I'm going to give it to them, because then they'll see how generous I am. And then everything's going to get resolved earlier, because they're going to see how nice I am, how generous I am. They don't. They either, number one, think that they're entitled to it. So they're like, no, you're not being generous. That was mine to begin with, or I was entitled to that to begin with. Or number two, they just take it. They basically just throw it to the side and just go, "Yeah, and your point is what? I want more." They don't ever go, yeah, you did this thing, or yeah, that's great what you did for that. They just don't. They don't acknowledge you. They don't see what you've done for them. It doesn't become kind of like, this chip that you did early on, this great sort of generosity accomplishment that you got early on. It doesn't happen like that, unfortunately. So don't think that you're going to do that early on and get some kind of goodwill for it. Okay. So that's the second thing. The third thing that you want to avoid when you are talking to a narcissist or a super negative person is thinking that you're going to get closure. A lot of people just want that closure. They want that bow that tied up. Hey, we had a great thing. Let's wish each other well. Let's know that it was all good. And, going forward, let's be on good terms and all those things. That's what I thought when I was wrapping things up with a person in my life that I had a business relationship with. I thought that I could do that and leave it all on good terms and have some kind of closure with it, talk it through. It doesn't work that way with narcissists. They're not capable of it. No matter what you do, even if they wanted to end the relationship, they still end up taking it personally, that you were okay with it, that you're walking away from it. Even if you didn't want to walk away from it, they still end up looking at you as an enemy, no matter what. If you're not for them, then you're against them. You're not going to get that closure. You're still going to end up being public enemy number one. It's not going to feel fair. It's still going to be awful. You're not going to get that. So don't think that. Avoid talking to them about that. Avoid thinking that you're going to get that nice little neat bow at the end of that. Just avoid that conversation. Avoid trying to have that closure conversation, because you're not going to get the thing that you think that you're going to. And in fact, you're going to end up hurting yourself more than anything, because whatever you say or do will end up being used against you no matter what, because they will end up saying and twisting things that you do. Okay, so which leads me to the next thing, which is don't argue with them, because when you argue with them, then you will end up getting into that quicksand with them. And, that's exactly what they want you to do when you argue with them. Now you're getting into the thick of it. And, I remember, some of the narcissists that I've known, they'd be like, yeah, now we're getting into it. Now we're having a conversation. They actually enjoy that. They get off on it, they get a high on it, and you are out of your realm. Because especially if you are, an empath, and you think that you are going to get to a resolution, you think that you are covering ground, you think that you are getting to an end point. You are not. They are trying to just keep you spinning your wheels. They're just, yanking your chain, spinning your yarn, and it ends up costing you money, costing you time, costing you energy, your mental health, your soul, the whole thing. You are just arguing with them, and they're just getting narcissistic supply out of the deal. You're going nowhere. So that is just one of those things that you really need to avoid. And by the way, I've gone through 4 things so far. I still haven't gotten to the number 1 thing that you need to avoid, by the way. Okay. These are just other things that you need to avoid. There's still not even the number 1 thing that you need to avoid. Have you figured out what the number 1 thing is yet? Haven't even gotten to it yet. These are all just other things that you need to avoid. All right. The next thing that you need to avoid, which is still not the number 1 thing, but is a 5th thing that you need to avoid, is definitely avoid defending yourself. Do not defend yourself. Do not go, I didn't do that. That's not me. Are you kidding me? You think that I did that? What are you saying? I'm not a horrible person with money. I don't steal. I'm not a child molester. I don't do. What are you saying? How can you accuse me of that? Those are the kinds of things that narcissists want you to say. I don't beat children. I don't do, I'm not a horrible mother or a deadbeat dad. Those are the kinds of things that narcissists want you to say. They want you to get into it with them, right? They want you to say those things because that is where they get you down into it again, right? Arguing with it. They pull you into that quicksand. They pull you into that mud, right? They start going down into it. Oh, you bought a dog that was a designer poodle or a designer this or that. And you're like, what? I got the dog at the pound. And I can prove it. And then there you are defending yourself. Don't go down the path. Don't do it. When you defend yourself, you're agreeing that there is an issue. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is say, I deny. I deny what you're saying. No, there's no merit to what you are saying. There's so much more merit in short things. Never explain, justify, or overshare. Just the facts. Stay strong. And I want you to put that in the comments right now. Stay strong. Stay strong. You can do it. And by the way, still haven't gotten to number 1. Still haven't gotten to number 1, which is what I'm going to do right now. Are you ready for number 1? The number 1 thing to avoid when talking to a narcissist or a negative person, the number 1 thing, which I've kind of alluded to here so far, but I haven't actually come out and said it yet. The number 1 thing to avoid when talking to a narcissist is do not take their bait. Do not take their bait, because they're going to give you a lot of it. They're going to pull it out and they're going to reel you in like that, like you are some kind of fish on their, like on their hook. And then there you are coming in like that. And like they hooked you like a fish. Okay. And, dealing with a narcissist is like getting arrested. Like everything you say or do is going to end up being used against you. Right. And you don't want to have to deal with that. And this is whether you're dealing with it in a case, a court case, or any kind of situation. It can be any kind of a negotiation or anything. Okay, so let's talk covert narcissists. What's the difference between them and a regular narcissist? So they are every bit 100% narcissist. They are the same fragile little ego inside, the same super insecure person that's deep inside there, but they look a little bit different because they're not in your face the way regular overt narcissists are. They come across as a little bit more passive, a little bit more quiet, so that on the surface you don't actually even notice that they're narcissists at all in the beginning. As a typical narcissist, you think is the person who is telling everybody how great they are all the time. The covert narcissist does not do that. However, because they don't do that, and because you can't see it right off the bat on the surface, they're actually way more insidious and way more toxic than overt narcissists are. Okay, so another trait of a covert narcissist is that they come across as shy and actually even reserved. They actually probably are prone to bouts of depression. They may even tell you that they have bouts of depression. So, on the surface, they're going to seem to be like maybe they're just nice people. Maybe they might just be more fragile, something like that, because being a victim is very much part of the covert narcissist plan to get people into their lair. Okay, the third thing that you'll see with covert narcissists is they seem to be helpful in the beginning. So they'll actually lure you in with things that they know that you want, so that they can appear to be super helpful, but they really just want to use you. So once you're into their lair, then they start with the passive aggressive. They start to drip on you like the Chinese water torch, or I'm half Chinese, I could say that, on your forehead, kind of a thing. Like, and you start to think, am I crazy? Because the rest of the world sees this person as being so nice, but you kind of know that something is not right. They're doing all these little things behind your back, and they're very, very good at disguising it in such a way that if you tell somebody about it, the person's going to go, well, that doesn't sound so bad. But that it's like this drip, drip, drip thing that they're doing to try to make you crazy. They lure you in with, I'm going to help you with this. And then they start with passive aggressive little things to try to make you crazy. Okay, and the next trait of a covert narcissist is that they often like to play the victim, or maybe they're very sickly, or they often have health issues or something like that, because they constantly need to be the center of attention. So they come up with ways that they can constantly be the center of attention. And then the last thing is that they will not have any sense of empathy for another person. They can feign empathy, but they know when they have to apologize, just to apologize for the surface, but they really don't actually have any empathy for the other person, because they actually are narcissists, and narcissists don't feel anything for anybody but themselves. If this is sounding all too familiar, give me a for sure in the comments. Okay, so this is all well and good, but if you have a covert narcissist in your life, what can you do about it? So the first thing that you can do about it is not to react, especially if you know that this covert narcissist is trying to get under your skin or trying to manipulate you in some way, or they're saying something to try to get a rise out of you. You just say, good for you, or that's great. Don't react, because that's exactly what they want you to do. The second thing that you could do is, if the timing seems right, call them out on their behavior, but do it in a very subtle way. You sort of play their game. Oh, I'm surprised to see that you're here today. You said you were sick yesterday. Something like that. But you say it without emotion. You don't say it with smugness. You just say it so that they subtly know that you're calling them out on their behavior, but you are not bothered by it. They're not getting a rise out of you. You're just noticing it. So the third thing that you can do is, do not, and I repeat, do not let them know that they are getting to you. You do not show any emotion. You do not show that anything that they're doing has manipulated you in any way, because that is exactly what they want. And if they get that, then they're going to do more of it. So this is a subtle way to start shutting down this behavior. It's kind of like a behavior modification program for narcissists. You don't give them what they want. So don't react, because if you do, then that's what they want. Okay, the fourth thing that you can do is kind of similar to the others, but this is specific to gaslighting, because this is something that narcissists will do often, and especially covert narcissists too. They're going to try to gaslight you. So they try to make you think that you're crazy. So years ago, there was a movie, I think it was actually called Gaslight or something, and this husband was actually abusing the wife through trying to make her seem like she was crazy. And he would blow out these gas lights, and then she would say, wasn't that just lit? And he would say, no, it wasn't. And that's what gaslighting is. It's just like the subtle little thing to try to make you think that you're crazy. So basically it's like, we talked about that. You said that it was okay. Oh, we had a conversation. I'm sorry, there was a misunderstanding on your part, and you know that there was no misunderstanding, or maybe that there was no conversation ever at all. So don't let them gaslight you that way. Just say, no, there was never that conversation. No, we didn't have that conversation. Or no, there was no misunderstanding. This is what we talked about. Something like that. Remain firm. Don't allow them to manipulate you into thinking that you're crazy. Okay, number 5 is keep your barriers really strong. One of the things that narcissists do, because they've got this mantra that I will not be ignored, is they don't respect boundaries. So they'll come right into your room, they'll read your mail, they will go places that they're not supposed to be or whatever, and they act like, oh, here I am bringing you something nice, or I'm doing something nice for you. So, I'm not respecting your boundaries, but you're going to forgive me because I'm being nice about it, something like that. Don't allow them to not respect your boundaries. Have super strong barriers, super strong barriers. That's the only way you're going to be able to manage their behavior and also keep your own sanity. And the other thing that you can do is to slowly close down the barriers of communication. And what I mean by this is, if you have a narcissist in your life, or a covert narcissist, if the most thing that you can do for yourself is get them out of your life. Okay. And I've recently had to do that with people in my business arena. And because I've had some covert narcissists in my life in the business arena, and I've had to deal with that, and it was extremely difficult, and it's painful because it's sort of a betrayal in a lot of ways, right? But you just have to understand and have compassion for the fact that they're broken people, and that they have deep insecurities and problems, but that doesn't mean they have to be in your space. So if I were you, I would try to slowly shut down those barriers of communication and slowly start to wean them out of your space if you can.